What's up guys, it's Sean from Window Tint Warriors, and today we're going to be tinting all the side windows and the back window on a 2019 Chevy Cruze. So let's get to it with the outside prep, and then I'll show you how to remove the weather strippings. It is a Chevy, so you're going to have to trick the latch when you turn the key on or turn the push button switch on. Let's wipe the outside windows, put the dryer sheet on the rear window, and then we'll go to the door panel removal. All right, now that I have the outside all prepped, let's get to removing the top weather stripping. I have not done this vehicle yet, this body style, so I'm gonna show you guys how I learn how to remove the door panels. So typically on Chevys, the tops will roll back. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take the screw from behind the door latch here and see if I can roll the top back. And then we'll take it from there. I know it's probably going to be a 7mm, which it is. So we got a 7mm behind the cover here. Now let's go ahead and try to roll this panel back. And I can see right off the bat, it's the typical clips across the top of a Chevy. So I'm going to go grab my trim tool and we'll pop that top back. So in order to do this, we're going to come from the front side with the window rolled down. We're going to use a gasket jamming stick to pry back to get the trim tool in there to hold as a pry. And if you guys have watched all the vehicle specific videos, you're going to be able to relate this to a Chevy Silverado, where I release the clips across the top, or even a GMC Yukon. We're applying pressure and then releasing the tension from the clip with the gasket jamming stick, and it will simply release the top. So we're going to show you now that these are exposed. We put pressure with the door panel removal tool, and then these clips right here, all I'm doing is taking a gasket jamming stick and pushing down on the top of them, which compresses them and releases the door panel. Now we can remove the weather stripping. Before we do that, we want to make sure that this lower clip is released so that we have more pressure released from the top, allowing us to fit our hand in here, grab the gasket, lift it up, being very careful not to pull the clips up with you. So we want to release the tension on the top to prevent that from happening, and then slide the gasket out. Now we have full access to the bottom, and we can bottom load this window. Let's do that on the back window, and then we'll go ahead with the inside prep. So right off the bat, we'll go ahead and just roll the window down as far as it can. It does roll down all the way on this vehicle. That way, once we take this 7mm out from behind the door handle here, we can just go on the other side and start prying that away. Let's check the back first, see if this releases. No. So we're going to come from the front side again, or the outside. Get the door panel tool in there to apply pressure, and then we'll release the first clip. Work our way over to the second clip. Sometimes they need some finagling. And just work your way across, releasing all those clips. And the one that's going to be the hardest is behind the glass here, since it is not exposed. We may be able to release that just by applying enough pressure, which we are. And then we'll go ahead and pull out this nub here. I wouldn't even call it a clip, it's just like a nub that goes into a hole, and that gives us enough room to fit our hand in there. Grab the weather stripping, gasket. Grabbing it from the center will give you more leverage since it is tight into the sides. Lift it up out of the sides and then pull it out. You can technically remove this plastic housing or the plastic cover here and lift the gasket out of there, but you can simply also pull it back out. But when we put it back in, we're gonna wanna pull this away so that the gasket can fit inside of there. But we'll get to that when we put it all back together. Let's go ahead with the inside prep, so we'll roll the windows back up. On this vehicle, the accessory power does shut off after about 5 minutes if you leave the key on. So you just gotta keep turning the push button on. Since we did roll the windows down, you're gonna wanna wipe the outsides again very quick if you did already, because any debris in that outside gasket weather stripping will get onto the window. We'll do our inside prep and then lay out the bulk material. We'll have a Wi-Fi OnStar sticker here. Just remove that. Wipe the top edge and roll it back up. After you roll it up, of course, you gotta wipe the outside bottom edge. And we'll do the same on the back door. Now this vehicle is just like any other sedan. Of course, you do have that extra quarter glass window on the front door. And these quarter glasses, the only special thing about this car is these quarter glass windows on the front and the rear have very close gaskets. So when we cut these, they have to be extremely, extremely precise. The gasket is literally right at the edge. And they're very tight against the window. But as long as you cut it as tight as possible, you'll be good to go when you install it. All right, let's go ahead and lay the bulk material out. I'm gonna lay it out on both the front and the rear door, and then I'm gonna start hand cutting the front door. I do have some extra material here from a previous job, so I definitely want to use this. So I'll lay this out on the front door. We have a straight edge on both sides. Line up the bottom. I'm just gonna lay the material out on the back door so we have it there. This is 20% SunTech Standard Pro. Like I said, very straightforward car. You're gonna line up the bottom edge, we're gonna cut the front edge, shift it forward 1/4 inch, mount it in place, cut the back, roll it down, cut the top, and you're done. So bottom edge lined up, cut the front edge. Keep in mind these front corners are going to be the quarter glass windows, so don't cut that off and throw it to the side just yet. So we have the bottom edge lined up, front edge cut, shifting forward 1/4 inch with the bottom edge still lined up. We'll mount that into place, cut the back edge. Then we can go ahead and cut the excess off of the top. We'll lay that onto the front quarter window here. This is how I do my workflow, so if you guys want to replicate it, that's the key here. We'll line up the straight edge that we have on the material to the bottom edge, cut the excess material off, mount it into place. Once you have it mounted into place and that bottom edge is lined up, we can start cutting the sides. But if you do not have a straight edge on your piece for some reason, you can overlap all sides, cut the bottom edge first so you have that in place and the film is overhanging on the sides. Then we'll go ahead and cut the sides. So the first side that I like to cut first is the back edge, since it is a straight edge. And we can just follow it along just like cutting the front or the back of a roll down window. We'll tear that away. Now, depending on the percentage of film that you're using, you may want to use a light on the other side. If you have your phone in your pocket, you can turn the flashlight on, stick it in there. And remember, like I said before, very important to cut this as tight as possible. So we're going to cut right to the edge of the dot matrix. Very precise. So if you guys look at that, you see it's exactly to the edge of the dot matrix here. Even down here, I may need to even sliver off a little bit, which I'm going to do right now. I'm going to do that when I take it off because it's hard to get to. And on this quarter glass window, even the bottom edge is very tight. All the edges are tight and there's not really much room to work with. So make sure you cut that exact as possible. But we have that cut out. We have the door cut out. We lined up the bottom, shifted it forward 1/4 of an inch. It's mounted in place, ready to roll down and cut the top. So let's install this and then we'll go and install the quarter glass window. So we have the mount in the center, so this window is not, the film's not going to move when we roll it down. Let's roll it down and cut the top edge, and then we'll clean up our edges. We do our continuations of the back and the front edges using the gold card as our straight edge. Clean up our bottom corners. Nice and tight. Do a continuation of our top edge, wrapping around to the front. Do have a very slight imperfection here that I'm going to trim out. And then our top back corner, nice and tight round. Once you have all the edges cleaned up, you're going to go ahead and mount it 1 inch from the top, overhanging the back, mount it in place across the top. Then we'll go inside and do our spray squeegee spray and follow up with the bottom loading installation. So we're going to roll this up to about 1 inch from the top, spray it up, squeegee, overlapping strokes, removing any contamination, down the back edge. Flush down the back, across the bottom, across the front, in the center. Let's grab our material. So I'll say this in every video and I'll say it in this one if you guys haven't watched the others. Just like any other bottom loading technique, we're gonna get the front bottom corner in first, slide that down, get the front top edge in behind that gasket into the channel, and then you're going to work the back down, laying the back top and then sliding it back into place. And if you need to, roll the window down a little bit to get more visibility. Get that top edge lined up really nice. Mist the window up for when you have to squeegee it. And once you have it lined up to about exactly where you need it, you'll start with the light squeegee strokes just to get the majority of the soapy water out so it starts to tack. And you'll notice that this piece of film is extremely hazy. That's because it was wet and rolled up. It's not going to cause any issues with the curing process or anything, but if you do get window film wet and you roll it up to save for later, you will get this hazy appearance until it dries on the window. So this piece of film is moving around a lot, so I'm going to go over it a few times just to get it to mount into place and start getting tacky. It is cold out, so it will take some time for this to tack up. So once we have the majority of that water out, we'll line up that top edge as exact as possible, nice and tight. And then I'm going to heat it up a little bit from the outside because this is very slippery, and then we'll go and do our final hard press. So here's a little tip. If the film is sliding a lot and maybe you had too much soap in your soapy water solution, you can squeegee the water off the outside, heat a little bit across the top from the outside, and it'll get the water to evaporate and start making the film tacky. If it is hot out already, you may not have to do this, but this is a great solution for when it's cool out and the car came in from outside. Give it a couple passes, allow the heat to transfer through the glass to the film side, and then we'll go back inside and do that final hard squeegee press. So I'm going to give it one push forward just to make sure it's not moving. And then I'll start from the front, come to the back, overlapping strokes, hard presses, into the back side, down the back. And then we can go ahead and push out the top edge with the gray Lidco card towel and the heat gun. You want to make sure that your top edge isn't overlapping. Since we have that top edge pushed out, we didn't go down the sides yet. So the sides are very open on this vehicle. You can use the heat gun with the gray Lidco card and just push into there. If they were any tighter, I'd say use the Easy Reach. Give it a quick check from the outside. Make sure it's good to roll up. We do have a little blemish in the top corner here. So apply a little bit of heat from the outside. We'll push that out. And the same thing for the front corner here. I'm just giving that final press across the top to make sure it's sealed up really nice. Working out any little imperfections. We're good to roll this window up. Squeegee out the remaining bottom. Then I'll go down the sides with the Easy Reach to get into the bottom corners. And then we'll seal up the bottom edge by misting it lightly to lubricate it and using the gray Lidco card with the heat gun to seal up that bottom edge nicely. Shrinking any fingers that could possibly pop up. Maybe a few couple little ones, but nothing crazy on this window. Wipe the panel down quick, and we'll follow up by installing that quarter glass window on this front door, and then we'll move to the back door. Quick outside check. Make sure there's no contaminations. We're good to go. So when installing this quarter glass window, you want to make sure that this point right here on the top is not too extended, because that can be an overlap. So we're going to round that out very slightly just to make sure there's not excess material, because the gasket is so tight. And we'll round out the bottom corners just very slightly to make sure there's no excess material. You can do this many ways. You can mount the film here on the outside and pick the corner. I'll do that for you guys so you can see it. Typically, I would just hold the film in my mouth while I'm squeegeeing out on the other side, and then I'll peel the film in front of me. But as you proceed to practice and practice, you'll come up with your own method. So we'll mount it on the outside there. Spray the inside. Do our spray squeegee spray with a 3.5-inch yellow turbo from the top to the bottom. Wiping the blade after each squeegee pass. Mist that up lightly. You don't want to spray too much water. Then we'll come along the front, peel the release liner. Then we'll grab a material without touching the glue side. Get the front corner in first. This can be a little bit tricky, but just be patient. Get it the right position on your hand, and you'll be able to get it into place. Twist it back and forth until there's no more light gaps or there's no overlapping material, and it looks good. So with a quarter glass like this, where it's very precise and it can't move once you get it into its position, I'll heat it up from the outside quite a bit to get it to start to tack up a little bit, and then I'll give it a nice squeegee press and it'll be on there for good. Let's come over here. We'll heat this up a bit. Doing this starts to evaporate the water between the film and the glass, and it'll cause the film to start adhering to the window before we even squeegee it. Now, what you don't want to do is overheat this and cause the film to overheat and then cause a blister in the glue. You just want to heat it up enough to where it's like a little bit hot to touch. Allow the heat to transfer for a bit, because once you heat up this side of the glass, it takes time for the heat to transfer to the other side of the glass. It doesn't instantly pass through. So we have that heated up, pretty good amount. It's hot to touch. We'll go on the inside, spray a little bit of soapy water, and see how we can squeegee this out and make sure it's not moving. So the soapy water is sprayed on there. I'm still going to hold it into position. You may even be able to see some steam coming off of the window. That's how we know it's pretty hot. So we'll wipe the squeegee blade, give it a light stroke first. And if you heated it up enough from the outside, that light stroke, that film is into position. It's not going anywhere. So that's a little trick for you guys with these small quarter glass windows that tend to move a lot as you're squeegeeing them out. Just heat it up a little bit from the outside, and you'll be good once you do that first squeegee press. It's not going to move around on you. So this is into place perfectly. Let's wipe this panel down. Wipe the window down. Now we can follow up and start doing the back door. So with the back door, we get right to it. We'll line up that bottom edge. We're going to cut the back edge first, just like any other rear door on a car. Let's shift it back 1/4 of an inch. Make sure that bottom edge is lined up nice and tight in there. Mount it into place. We're going to cut the front edge. This should be getting very repetitive for you guys, so you should be able to get a hang of this very quickly. Line the bottom up, cut the back edge, shift it back 1/4 of an inch, mount it in place, cut the front edge, then we're going to roll it down to cut the top edge. Now you can see that I didn't cut the excess material off, and I'm hoping that after I cut this top edge exact right here, this will be enough material to do this quarter glass window. So let's go ahead and cut the top edge. Tear that away. And we'll check what we have here with the quarter glass window. It's going to be tight. And look at that. We have our straight edge from the top. We'll line that up into place. We can line that up with the back edge since it is a straight edge. Squeegee it into place and cut it out. Cut the bottom edge first. Make sure it's mounted into place perfectly so it doesn't skew our vision at all. Get our phone light and start cutting this as tight as possible. Now if you're cutting from the top to the bottom, before you go all the way to the bottom, you're going to want to reposition your knife starting from the bottom to the top, because if you could try to go from the top to the bottom, you're going to change your knife angle and cut too deep into the glass and potentially cut the glass. Start back from the bottom and continue our cut. All right, now that the quarter glass window is all cut out, let's proceed with finishing the door window, and then we'll install that quarter glass. So we have all the edges cut, we just got to trim up the edges. We'll do the continuation of the back edge. Continuation of the front edge. Round out the corners. Get them nice and tight. Round out the bottom corners. And we can mount this on the top, or 1 inch from the top. And with the back doors, we overhang the front edge instead of the back edge. So that way we're overhanging on a pillar always 1 inch from the top. Mount that into place, wipe the top edge of the glass, and then we'll do our spray squeegee spray and install the film. Let's go ahead and grab the material, peel the release liner. And again, just like any other bottom loading method, we're going to install the front edge in first. Getting that front corner down, get the top front corner in, slide it forward, allow the bottom back edge to get into the channel, shifting the film back and forth simultaneously, working it into place, making sure there's no kinks so you don't get creases. Roll it down a bit. Get that top edge lined up. Miss the outside. And then squeegee it into place. Start with a light stroke first, Get the majority of the water out. Tap it up a little bit. Do harder presses. Down the front. It's still moving a bit, but we're gonna push out the top edge with the blue huck towel, the gray Litco card, and the heat gun to seal that up. Now, if the film is moving a bit, you're gonna wanna heat it up first before you go start pushing, just to get it to tack. Once you heat it up a little bit, start pushing across the top, paying close attention to see if the film is moving. And then we'll go down the sides. Give it a check from the outside, and then we'll roll it up. Of course, we're going to pay close attention to the corners. Make sure they're laid down and adhered very nicely, because those are the pressure points when you roll the window up. Work our way across the top. Hit that back top corner. And this window is ready to roll up, so we'll roll it up. Spray the inside and squeegee the bottom edge. Overlapping your strokes multiple times to make sure you don't miss any spots. And then we'll go down the side with the easy reach just to get into those bottom corners. You can see we have a little bit of water residue here. If you have that anywhere where you miss a squeegee stroke, you can take the gray Litco and push into the side. Now we're going to seal up that bottom edge. Just a little bit of soapy water for lubrication. Heat gun, gray Litco card. Seal that edge up really nice. Give that bottom edge a check from the outside. And we'll grab our quarter glass window and start installing that. With the quarter glass, you can see there's some fingers here. So these may not be an issue, but since this is such a tight quarter glass window, I'm gonna shrink these. Now, if you remember, the straight edge was here, which means that the film has to be shrunk sideways. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull the film off. I'm gonna remount it here, and I'm gonna squeegee it in favor of its shrinkable position, which is making the fingers go that route. So now, since we have a finger here, we can shrink that sideways, and we'll avoid any problems when we follow up with installation. Very simple solution to any issues afterwards. Now, just like the front quarter glass window, we're going to clean up the corners just to make sure there's no excess material that could potentially bunch up when we install. Now I'm going to do this installation method my way that I usually do. I hold the film between my teeth, and while I'm doing the spray squeegee spray, I'm actually separating the liner in my mouth. I'll pull the liner off. Light mist. Laying that into place very carefully. And since we cut it extremely tight, it should lay very nicely into place without bunching up any of the corners. We do have a slight bunch up here. We'll get that to lay down. It's not excessive. And just like we did with the front quarter glass window, I'm going to heat it up a bit from the outside to get that initial tack into place. Start squeegeeing it, doing light strokes. All right, that quarter glass is good to go. Give it a quick wipe down, and then we'll follow up with the gasket reinstallation before we get to the back window, making sure those corners are laid down nicely. We'll do the front door first. These are very straightforward to reinstall. As long as those clips across the top are released, we're going to take the channel, or the squeegee, lay onto the tongue here. We'll call this the tongue and groove. The door itself, the metal part, is the tongue. This is the groove on the gasket. We'll slide that onto the tongue. Slide it forward. And then we're going to have a little complication here with this plastic, so we're going to pull this plastic away, lay the gasket into place, and then we can finagle this plastic back onto the gasket at the same time. Checking over here, making sure that the rubber seal around the edge is on the outside of this plastic housing, and then it will seat nicely into place. So you may not have to pull this plastic housing off, but the gasket does sit under it. So if you just grab it, pull it away, lay the gasket or the weather stripping down, then you can just put the plastic housing back over that. Very simple. Once that gasket is down, or the weather stripping, whatever you want to call it, either way, once that's down into place, you can take the panel and smack it back onto the clips. And then once that's smacked back into place, make sure your lock pin is correct and working before you put the screw back in. Sometimes it can get jammed up in there. Then we'll take our 7mm behind the door latch here, pop that back into place, and then the plastic cover that goes over it, you can see there's two prongs here. The bottom goes in first and then the top lays in. All right, let's do the same thing with the back door, and then we'll follow up with the back window. Slide it onto the channel, and you can see here we have quite a bit of extra material, part of the weather stripping on the back door. So we're definitely going to have to grab this piece of plastic here. You see, we could pull it away enough without releasing the bottom clip to get the gasket to lay into place. Let's not overcomplicate this. Once we pull it away enough, we can get that rubber underneath there. And you guys will see when you do this, it's very easy. It's a lot easier than I make it look. I make it look pretty hard. But the whole concept here is get the front edge of the gasket in, pull this plastic away a little bit, get the rubber of the weather stripping gasket under this plastic housing here. And once you have it under there, just make sure this is in place good. Line up the top, smack it into place, and you're ready to put the screw back in. Plastic cover, bottom in first, and that's it. All right, guys, let's jump right to the back window. Just like any other vehicle-specific video, I have a pre-cut here. Unless the rear window is extremely hard to cut out, I always use a pre-cut on the back window so I don't have to cut directly on the glass. There is a little complication with this back window. They have a lot of stickers. The stickers aren't the problem, but with this butterfly one here, there are gems on it. I'm not gonna go and rip them off on her. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shrink the majority of the material. Then I'm gonna lift it up and shift it over and then shrink that corner on the side here. It may create a complication with installation, but I can deal with that. So we'll do the standard H pattern. And let's shrink this up as much as possible, and I'll shift it around. So what we're going to do here is just slide the film over. It's not a common thing to do. This is not the optimal thing to do, but the last thing you want to do is make a customer upset and remove their stickers. So mount that in place. Hit it with the H pattern again. Work out most of the shrinking that we did already. And then we'll shrink this corner here. So we could go and just not shrink this corner at all, but it'll create a lot of complications when we go and install the film. And you'll have fingers that you just do not want to deal with on the inside. So that should do the trick. We're gonna have to apply some heat from the outside after we install this to get that corner to lay down nicely, but that is good enough for what we need. I'm gonna go ahead and spray the perimeter. squeegee it into place. Then we'll go inside and do the inside prep of the windshield, or the rear windshield. Follow up with installation. All right, on this back seat, well, the back window, we're gonna take the headrest out. You can grab the latch, push the buttons on the side, release those, get them out of your way. And we'll do our spray. Scrub the back window with our scrubber and a blue non-score pad. Give it a wipe with the blue huck towel. Wipe the sides, remove any debris that could be on there. I'm simply going to lay this over the speakers, avoid any water damage, and we'll do our spray squeegee spray. We can go grab our material. Just like any other back window, we want to avoid touching any of the panels, especially the lower deck if it's carpet. Slide that bottom edge into place, get it lined up, get the tint into the sides, push down, line up that top edge nicely. We do have an antenna plug here that we may have to trim. It's pretty tight, hitting against it, but we look good. We'll spray that up and mount it into place. It's a very small rear window, not complicated at all. I'll hit the bottom edge with the bulldozer. We can go ahead and push out the top edge with the squeegee wrapped in a towel, just to remove any excess water residue across the top that could drip between the film and the glass. Wipe the panels down. We'll wipe the outside of the back window down. Let's put these headrests back in first. Check the outside. We do have a little water residue here. Go ahead and push that out really quick using the gray lid coat card. And I don't see any complications with this area that we did. I am going to heat the outside of this back window just to cure it up a bit. But I'm not going to show that to you guys because it's very simple and straightforward. I'm just going to heat the back window up, allow it to tack because it is cold outside, so I don't want to pull it outside and have anything pop up. And that is how you tint a full 2019 Chevy Cruze. I will see you guys in the next video.